Hello. For those of you that doesn't know me already, I will shortly introduce myself. My name is Dominik Lubański. I'm senior front-end developer at Oficjalny company. And today I would like to tell you a short story about the process, how I created this library, linked.html. I start with some research. In real world, if you want to do something, the first thing in your mind should be that I want to know something more about the environment and things around this thing that I want to create. Because sadly, if you don't do this, in some point of view, you can create something that will be useless. So let's begin with some research about websites. And let's back to the 90s for the moment. So we are going back 20 years ago. What important happened in 1995? Do you know? I think you know. The first official HTML specification was published. What does it mean for us? That point of time, the web starts growing and being like that is today. But how do websites look like in these days? Like this. Recently can tell that they wasn't pretty. But what is more important, the websites were based on complete HTML pages. Each user action required that a complete page had to be loaded from the server. So we know that it was an inefficient process. All page content disappeared and then appeared again. So let's forward 10 years after. In 2005. In that time, the term Ajax was published, stated on 18th of February 2005. What does it mean for the web? That from that point of time, the websites began to have dynamic parts that doesn't have to be refreshed like an old web page. So in that time, the client-side JavaScript frameworks were created, the first ones. And a single-page application architecture was created. So, what is now, in 2015? Is 20 years after this point of time in 1995. Is that really changed? We could hope that, have a hope that we are learning some JavaScript frameworks and use it commonly on the web. But is it the true? I thought that would be good to know and measure how much is usage of the JavaScript libraries on the websites. So I have found the survey from w3tech.com, and they took the top 10 million websites from the rankings provided by Alexa. And I choose three things from that survey because it is most meaningful for us for now. So two of these libraries are JavaScript frameworks that can be used as SPA, and one is commonly known by anyone, jQuery. So what do you think? How much 10 million websites in the web use SPA for JavaScript frameworks? How much?
20%.
0.1. And 0.3 for Angular. And this is the highest results of the JavaScript frameworks. But on the other side, 67% use jQuery. So why? Why do people in 2015 doesn't use Angular everywhere in the web? So conclusion from this research is the most of the websites still use the backend frameworks to render data. Because we know that the SPA is for client-side rendering, yes? And web development has not changed much since 1995. Of course, I'm not saying about the presentation, because this has changed a lot. But the architecture of pushing the data to web browsers doesn't change much. And sadly, JavaScript frameworks are not used as much as we would like. So this gives me a point of view that there has to be some problem with JavaScript frameworks. And we have to find it, and of course solve it. So what is the main problem of the JavaScript frameworks? They are too complicated for simple tasks. If you just have two inputs and you write down two numbers and want to calculate the sum, would you use to do that AngularJS or Backbone.js? I think you don't need any JavaScript framework to do so. The other problem is that JavaScript frameworks need initial data model to render view. I think you maybe don't really understand what I mean, but this example will show you what is exactly. For example, Angular, there is a case about pushing data to the view. In this example, there is input and span, and there is ng-model and ng-bind. But I also push there the data from the server. So there is a simple property attribute value and text content of the span. But when you bootstrap Angular, this data will disappear. Why? Because the Angular needs the data from the JavaScript. You just, the data will be gone. So what you would do if you really need the Angular, you broke that. Because you have to twice push the data and set something really dirty. Even in documentation of Angular, they're saying that ng-init is not created for that purpose. So there are conflicts. You want to use some tool, but this tool, it really not fixes your problems. But you can say that, but the newest frameworks can be rendered by the server side. Yes. React can be rendered by server-side. Angular 2 will be rendered by server-side. But they still need JavaScript on the server-side. So you need Node.js to do that. For example, if you have some component of React, you have to put your own logic into JavaScript. And then you can combine, of course, the data model from the server and push it to web browser. But it's still JavaScript. You need this to work with data model. And the last thing what I thought is that the template syntax usually can have a conflicts with backend template engines. This is Angular markup. This double brackets means that you want to data binding something inside an expression with the node. But this is also binding by the twig. It's a commonly known template engine for the Symfony projects. And this is the same. So I know that this problem can be fixed, and Angular has a property that can be changed these brackets to free brackets or whatever else. But this is also the conflict in the view, that you see the template, there are just brackets from Angular and the brackets from another template. So which is which? So all the things, the problems, make me an idea that we need to solve these problems. Because in every day of my work, I am breaking the wall about the JavaScript frameworks that really not fit to my problems and my needs. So I wanted to create simple and easy learn API, the simplest as possible. Because a lot of frameworks are just containers for everything. So you can do anything with this framework, so this documentation is really large. Options are endless. And the second point is that the data model should be extracted from HTML, and it can be generated by any server-side language and any template engine. Of course, that tool should have safe markup syntax. And also, it should have dynamic data binding for boosting development. It's not possible to create nowadays the framework that would not have data binding. I think it's not possible because there is other tools that can boost your development. And also, it's really important to have a good performance because the mobile is now a really important thing. So that's why I wanted to create linked HTML. But it took me over the year to that point, and I'm here. It wasn't not really it was a really funny way and really encouraged me to know things better, but it was also very struggling. So I would like to share with you about architecture of that project. And we start with safe markup syntax. So I started to think that I should use the preprocessed syntax like mustache, handlebars. I studied a lot of other template engines and how they work. But no, they can be used because I need then JavaScript on the server side to pre-process these templates. And of course, there are possibly conflicts with template engines. So it has to be a part of HTML specification. Custom attributes. And yes, we can use them. So I choose that I will create some kind of custom marker, custom attribute that I put something inside of that. And in shorter syntax, I will use that is double dash for just shortness. So that's the syntax. We know that we should have use custom attributes. So how to extract data model from the DOM? So in this example, you can see some special custom attributes. And I thought that to be the simplest way to do that, we need to have one-to-one mapping. So in Angular 2, if you maybe are familiar with that, there will be some magical brackets, square brackets, round brackets, and anything like that with attributes. I want it to be so consistent that you say that something is attribute, so that mean specific thing. So even you don't know anything about my project, I think you understand this view. So in the H1, you have custom attribute class, which just connects the existence of new class with some property. And text custom attribute, of course, means that I want to take the text content from the node and push this to some property, and etc. So this is the syntax. So I don't say here about implementation, but the syntax. But I wanted to create easy-to-learn API. So API architecture covers three concepts. Engine, which connects all the parts together, and libraries start with this module. Markers. These are these custom attributes, but this really means there are micro modules that are created for linking data model with the DOM. And last thing is expression. So it's this inside of this marker, this value of attribute. So it evaluates to something more specific, and it passed to the marker. So for now, I will deeply show you how they are implemented. So library starts with engine module. So we have to import engine from the library. We take some element that will be the root of our component. And of course, initialize live view. This engine module has also option to have a second argument, which have some options. For now, it's most important for you that engine has special property state. And this state is a property that is container for our data model and will be used in next slides. So this state is here most important. So what about markers? If you will think about Angular directive, I think I'm so confused with this implementation that every time when I wanted to do something with directive, I go to documentation. I just can't remember everything that it can be done with directive. Of course, I'm telling about 1.6x version, of course. So I wanted to marker with nothing more than ordinary functions that are called in compilation process. And I explained that a compilation process is just when you initialize engine, it goes through all your DOM and just looking for these markers and run this function. So when the engine starts, it has a map that knows that text custom attribute, of course, is mapped to the text marker function. So there is arguments like engine instance, node, and is evaluate. And evaluate is the attribute value. So we know that markers can have everything. So if you create your custom marker, it can just alert something with the DOM. But I wanted to have the markers that are specially created for linking data to the DOM, with the DOM. So we may understand markers as something like JSON schema for JSON objects, but built in HTML nodes. So we have some node, and we say that the property source is connected to the thumb URL. Of course, it's not really like JSON schema, but it's like explanation of your data model, put it to the DOM. Of course, library provides few more of them that I showed you already for linking arrays, working with forms, of course, and listen for events. So we are going to the last part of architecture, expression. So expression represents destination property path. What does it mean? Expression uses engine state property as destination root. So I already said this engine state is the thing that will be a container for our data model. And state from DOM is initially pushed to the data model in this compilation process, what I have said. And it is done only once. So it's like Ember bootstrapping, and it's like pushing React rendered component and taking the information from it. So after compilation to the example code that I showed you before for HTML, our state will be like that. So we will take out this information from HTML. Library also can take state from constructor and merge it with state from HTML. And only expressions with undefined value are set from the DOM. I think it might be a little confusing for you for now, but I'm telling this information because of the nature of expression. It's created for just setting the value only then we don't have it already in our state. So the markers that I show you, the class or text or prop, there are that use this kind of pattern, that you have some marker and everything inside of that is expression, or just the marker have just list. So you have a key and expression, key and expression. But it can be anything you want if you will use this library. It's up to you. Because the markers are imperatively use an expression module inside of the marker. So this is example, some kind of the marker, and it creates expression. And what is it, how the expression is constructed is demand of the what marker needs. So to understand better the expression, let me explain about the syntax of this expression. So we have some path to the property. And we already know that this means that state is the root object and something property of that state will be set. So path works also with nested properties. So you can say that something.1 brackets and whatever, it works. But it will not work with that something of that thing. So it not work like Angular. But you may ask why? I just don't want to implement this? No, there is a really reason for that. Expression path has to be a settable endpoint because of two-way nature of analyzing data model. Because we have a server-side rendered view, and this has to connect to the data. We need the path where the data will go. We can't just push the data to the statement on the right side, yes? We cannot. So there is a problem to create more specific logic, because there is not always that we just wanted some data. We have logic in our applications. So that's why there are flags. Flags are the one-character prefixes which change expression behavior. And I explain them. Not all of them, but explain some meaningful. So add prefix, set engine instance as the destination root. And this is the answer for that problem that I showed you before. Because if I would have a button and there is a marker on which connects the name of the event with the endpoint function, and the span, of course, can have text with something from the state. So if I push there this prefix, the root destination of the expression changes. What this gives us? the possibility to create more complex applications. Because if I extend my engine, this is just ES6 markup, but it could be done in different way. But this my engine has do something method, and also computed property count. So when I push this add prefix, I can use them both. So when I push the button, I change the state count property, but the count computed property of the engine is multiplied by count by 5. So I can now push my logic inside of the JavaScript, and my HTML is clean. There is no logic inside of HTML because this represents the data and the state. But my JavaScript is for creating logic. Also, there is a & prefix, so it makes expression read-only. What does it mean? It's not read-only in both ways. It's read-only from the DOM to the state. So how it was said before, this process is done only once, initially the library. So this is a case that you reuse your expression twice, and one is the parent and one is the child. So in the parent, there is a class marker that said that with title should be connected with the title property. So when the with title is there, the title will be true. But the children has also title and said, yes, I want the text pushed to the title. So without this ampersand, the engine state after initializing will be title true. And this is the time when you come back to the slide, when I said that the things are set only then when they're undefined. And this is very important. So when the engine goes to the second marker, the title will not be changed because this is set already. And for that is the ampersand prefix. Because with it, the class marker and the expression itself inside of that will just read this, not write to that. And this is very easy to understand prefix because this just inverts the bool value. It could be done with the add and some computed property, but this is really common usage. So I just choose to implement it inside of the library. So after the compilation process, engine state will be this description. But this is not all about expression. It has also filter. Why? Filter modify setting and getting value of expression. Because the rendered view from the server side, all is the text. Yes? We have just the string. But we are not working only on the strings. We have numbers, bools, objects, whatever else. So in this example, we have div with text marker, which has update add property in the state, but also has a filter time. What does it do? I want to use the moment library. It's very good library to using with dates. So I wanted to use that. So I create this filter, and when the DOM set value to the data model, and this is only gone once, there is a moment object created. So in my state, it's me. Okay. I think you are not sleeping now. So I'm not. Okay. I just go with the subject. There is a moment object inside of state, and whenever you mutate this moment, we want to have in our DOM the string with this value, not object. So there is both ways. So that's it. This is the whole, I think, I showed you the whole API of this project. And this took me just 10 minutes. I know, I think that you don't understand the 80% of that, I think, because I'm really go fast, because there is no time to say more. But I think I get your attention, maybe little. So what about dynamic data binding? I think I already said to you how it works, but expressions can be observed for the changes. So when I have expression, this instance of expression, there is the observe method, and whatever the expression endpoint is changing, I can run the function which will do something. And for the default, expression uses equality check, so it's very fast. But also, working with object and arrays, I created special other library before I started to work on the linked HTML. It's Papillon library. I encourage you to see on the GitHub. But this library creates frozen states of the objects and then go deeply inside of the object. So when anything happened to deep property of the object, we will know about that. And yes, markers uses that feature to reflect state changes in the DOM. But how it works? Getting or setting state property of engine instance, Q is change detection. So whenever you change something in the state and take the state like that, after next repaint, your DOM will be changed. So we have dynamic and responsive UI. There's not much time to talk deeply about other things in the project that struggle me months. But I wanted to share you some kind of information shortly. The state property is never prototypically chained. What does it mean? I think if you work with Angular, you sometimes broke the wall when the scopes are prototyped. And you may think that you change some property, but it is not that property. It's property from your parent or from your child. And there is plenty of articles in the web about this problem. There is no such a thing in the library. But we have to deal with the objects, arrays, something that is nested. So there is a separation between data model and logic. Data model is just the object literal. But the engine itself is spawned. What does it mean? That I create object create and parent engine, and in some of the markers, I'm using it to create nested engines. And they can have some special functionality inside of that. Also, markers are designed to produce possibly minimal DOM changes. And I use the Papillon library to reuse the DOM with the lists, for example. When you resort your array, the DOMs will be not rendered again, will be just resorted. And architecture is almost ready for using with web components. In my head, in that time that I wanted to create this library, it has to be universal. So I wanted to also to connect with the web components. So this leads us to a use cases of the library. First of all, we can extract data model, like I showed. So you just mark your code, run your engine, and you can have now all information that is in the HTML. So you can use it whatever you want with that. So for SEO events, with GTM, Google Analytics, and pushing data layer to the GTM, it's convenient to just have already in the HTML. So whenever some backend guy will change your view and will cover these markers, you don't have to do anything in JavaScript because this will be pushed to the data layer automatically. And of course, we want to use this library to create dynamic user interfaces. But no, this is not created for SPAs. And what I mean, dynamic user interfaces, like the web pages, they are decorative with jQuery on other libraries. You don't have to use them now. You can use the linked HTML, link your data, and have full dynamic view. And this is the connection with web components. I wanted to have a special module which will connecting linked HTML with web components as the render engine. So if you shadow DOM, you could use this linked HTML as the library to create a dynamic view inside of your web component. And the last thing, maybe it's not common, but the library also can be used as this little thing that I created in my head, that if you have some tool that mess with the DOM, you can mark your code before this your process, take a snapshot of your data, do something like you have to do with your code, and then snapshot again. So you can test if your DOM really changed how you want it to change. But I don't know if someone will use this in this way. So I don't know how much time I have. 3 minutes. Yes? 5. Okay. Maybe 6. Okay. I don't know if this will be if you see this good, but I don't have time to go deeply what is the example, but this is the simplest server-side rendered page. So there is no JavaScript at all. It's just Node.js framework. There is a schema faker, schema data, and it's pushed to the view. So we have here a list of the products, and on the left side we have a template, and this is handlebars template, and this is a server-side rendered template. There is no JavaScript at all. So we have empty app.js file, and this is our view. So if you go to elements, we have this plenty of products. So we will start, like I said, we will import engine from library, and we will create one. And I will just cover whole body. So after initializing, we can console log engine state.
Sorry, from that mistake, from.
Yes, I always do this. Good. I show you the engine. So this is very dirty, yes? Because it's minified. This is very clever that you can load your sources. So now we have the engine. Right, there is the root property. This doesn't mean for now. So we will go to the state. Okay, and for the moment, this is the old JavaScript. So we have the state. So whenever we will push some marker, we will have it in our state. And to tell you that I'm not lying, I'll just change it. Okay, it works. But this is not funny, isn't it? So we will work with products. This is a thing that I don't cover in the architecture. So there is a for each marker which works with lists. And this was the greatest struggle of my work, because the Angular works differently. You not pass the directive on the parent. You just pass your directive inside of your node that you want to repeat. But when the data comes from the server, there is a problem with that, because all instances of this repeat has to have the markers. And they could be in some other positions and something in between them. And there is a really problem with that. I struggle with that, but the only solution that I created for now is that you have some node, and every children of this node will be set as one instance of the list. So now we have 45 products, but they are undefined. Why? Yes, but that is undefined is really meaningful. That was the second struggle of the list. Sometimes you are working with the list that have objects, but sometimes not. You just have list of strings. So that's why also is add prefix. Because add means this state instance, engine instance, yes? So this is the nested engine with own state. So there I say state. I have now list of products, I'll just go up, as a strings. And it was very difficult, really, for me to create the kind of thing that will work in both ways, that sometimes this object, sometimes they're not, and how it works. But this doesn't matter for now. So I will mark this code all. So here we have name. We can mark our source, that will be image. And we have here price and description. Okay, so now we have really great list of objects. So I'll little change that. Yes. Okay. So we have the table with all the projects. So you just mark your code, run your engine, and you have the data. What you can do fancy with that? We will try to resort these things by the price. Okay? So we will have a button. Not important. So on the click, we want to sort things, yes? And you remember, we just add, because we don't want to push our method to the state. We want to have it in the engine. So maybe, okay, I will create it here because of time. So we have my engine. And we have sort method. And here, create my engine. So the simplest thing is maybe to sort things by the price, but the price is string, yes? And this is what I said about the filters. We have a problem because the price is not number. So for the time reasons, I will simplify the process a little. And here we'll have price filter. Oh, so this is what I wanted to show you. The library also is error wherever there should be error. You will see error in the console log. There's no hidden errors in some situation. So wherever the library doesn't know the price filter, it will show you. So we need filter price. So this is very easy. When we set things from DOM, we just have to parse it as float. Yes, I know that you don't see. Get. So when we get, we just push it as a string. Now you can see. Here, never used, of course, never used. Price. So when we create our engine, we just push filters and our price. So that is okay, and you can see the price now is a number. So when we have a number, you can sort it. So our list is this state products, and this list should be sort. And we have function like that with sorting. And for the numbers, I know that we just need to return. So it will be easier like that. Okay, so we just minus one number of the other, and will be sort actually. Oh yes, of course. There are objects. Yes. price. So, okay. We have to push the button. Okay, so we have a list of products, and when we click sort, we have sorted list. So it's easy. I had some other examples more deeply, but there is no time for that. So what is the roadmap of this library? At the end of this year, I wanted to finish API documentation. It's nearly, this is just one page on the wiki, on the GitHub, but really, I didn't have the time. If you would see the commits, there are on the November too. So it's really fresh project. And I want to write some helpful guides and tutorials like that you can use in some way that will help you in some situations. In Q1 of 2016, I wanted to add missing markers and core functionality. Maybe you will tell me that there is something feature missing. And also, I want to create a wrapper module for web components, but this is the highest now struggling architecturally thing in my head. So I don't know how I'll do this. And next quarters, of course, I can do anything you propose. But what I have said, the project is starting, and I really need help. But what you can ask what you can do. So if you want to be a part of something big, just give a star for the linked HTML repository. It's nothing really hard, but for the GitHub and the projects, really meaningful. Try it yourself. Use it with your projects, maybe hobbies projects, maybe even production, because the library is tested. And give a feedback. But the most important thing, be a contributor, because this is not only mine project. I wanted to share the knowledge and things that I wanted to create, but I know that it's impossible to do such a big project by myself. So any idea is welcome. So thank you very much for your presentation. I don't know if we have time for questions, but yes.
Sorry,
no?
Dominik, it was so amazing that there is no time for questions. So questions, please. Ilarion.
Simple questions, please.
Yes. What would happen if somebody else, any other library modifies your HTML and removes or modifies the markers?
Yes, this is a very good question. And when I started to create this library, I wanted to have a really backward thing instantly. So I tried to have a link with both ways. It does not happen. It's really impossible to do. That will create, of course you can create mutation observers and whatever, and what the changes can, but there are loops then. Mistakes and problems. I tried. So you have to, you need to know that this other library doesn't change your code. So it's like every JavaScript framework. So you can not combine two of them and work together. Sorry. That's a word.
That's a good answer.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? There is one question from me. Are you the only contributor?
For now, I think yes.
Well, that's incredible. So I can declare that I'm going to give you a star and I'm going to test this on one project, maybe not on production, but at least I promise one project at least. And well, really, if it's going to work fine, I'm going to contribute, or maybe if it doesn't work fine, I'm going to contribute. Well,
in both ways, you're very welcome.
Okay, so I hope you find also some contributors today. And
okay.
And yeah, well, that's enough. Then, any other questions? No? Anyone? All right. Oh, maybe from we've got some questions from the internet. I know how to check this. Piotr is not there. Okay. Anyway, so thanks a lot.